Today, we're digging into a story about a simple family squabble that, believe it or not, ended up changing the rules of agreement for all of us. This is Felthouse versus Bindley, the case of the silent horse. So let me ask you something right off the bat. Have you ever gotten an offer, maybe in an email or a text, and you just didn't reply? What does that silence actually mean? Can someone legally just decide your silence is a yes? You'd think this is a pretty modern question, right? But the answer, the one that courts still use today, comes from a way older source, a courtroom, back in 1862. And it all came down to a single horse. All right, so let's get into it. This is really a story about how a simple, almost silly misunderstanding between an uncle and his nephew accidentally created one of the most important rules in contract law. Okay, so who's actually in this story? Let's meet our key players. And like a lot of good stories, this one starts with family, which is usually where things start to get complicated. On one side, you've got the uncle, Paul Felthouse. He really wants to buy this horse his nephew owns. And on the other side, we have the nephew, John Felthouse. He's totally fine with selling the horse, but he's maybe not the most organized guy in the world. Seems pretty straightforward so far, doesn't it? Well, this is where it all goes sideways. The entire, and I mean entire, legal battle that followed hinges on one little sentence in a letter that the uncle sent. And here it is. This is the sentence that kicked everything off. The uncle writes, "If I hear no more about him, I consider the horse mine at £30 15 shillings. Now pay close attention to what he's doing. He's trying to frame the deal so that silence equals acceptance. He's basically saying, you don't even have to say yes. Just say nothing and we have a deal. But see, it's rarely just about two people, is it? In this case, a third person, an auctioneer, stumbles into the picture and makes one critical mistake that just blows the whole thing wide open. Now here's the crazy part. In his own head, the nephew, John, actually thought, yeah, that's a good price. Deal. I'll sell the horse to my uncle. But, and this is the absolute key, he never wrote back. He never sent a telegram. He never actually communicated this thought to his uncle. So what did he do? Instead of talking to the guy who made the offer, he went to the man handling the sale of his livestock, an auctioneer named Mr. Bindley, and told him, hey, that horse over there, pull it from the auction. It's already been sold. So he clearly intended to sell, but he told the wrong person. And then, the one thing that wasn't supposed to happen, happens. The auctioneer, Mr. Bindley, gets confused, or maybe just forgets, and he sells the horse, by mistake, to a complete stranger. Okay, let's just quickly recap this comedy of errors. The uncle sends his silence means yes offer. The nephew mentally agrees but never actually replies to his uncle. Then the auctioneer messes up and sells the horse anyway. And the fallout? The uncle is furious and decides to sue the auctioneer for selling what he considers his property. So this lands the whole mess in front of a judge. But before the court can even figure out if the auctioneer did anything wrong, they have to answer a much more basic, fundamental question. Was there ever really a deal in the first place? I mean, everything hinged on this one point. If there was no contract, then the horse never legally belonged to the uncle. And if it wasn't his horse, he had no grounds to sue the auctioneer for selling it. The entire case came down to that moment of silence. So you've got these two clashing ideas. The uncle's argument is simple. Hey, I set the terms, silence meant yes, the nephew was silent, so we had a contract. But the court looked at it and said, hang on a second. Can one person really just force a contract on someone else like that? And did the nephew's acceptance ever actually make it back to the uncle? And the court's final word? It was blunt, it was clear, and it has echoed through legal history ever since. No, there was no contract. Period. And here is the logic, which is so important. The horse never became the uncle's property because the nephew's decision to accept the offer was locked inside his own head. He never took that final crucial step of actually communicating his yes to the person who made the offer. Okay, so cool story about a family feud and a horse in the 1800s, but why should you care about it today? Well, it turns out this old case is the very reason you're protected from all sorts of annoying modern problems. It gave us what lawyers now call the Felthouse v. Bindley principle. And what it boils down to is this. You cannot be forced into a contract just because you didn't say no. Acceptance has to be an action, a communication. It has to be a choice. And you see this principle in action all the time. You know when a company sends you something in the mail you never asked for? You don't have to pay. Or those sneaky auto-renew subscriptions with tiny print? This is your defense. It stops any deal that tries to claim, if we don't hear from you, we'll just assume you agree. So when you boil it all down, the big takeaway is this. For a contract to be real and binding, you need what's called a meeting of the minds. Both sides have to clearly and actively show they're on the same page. It demands a yes, not just the absence of a no. So the next time you ignore a marketing email or just decide not to reply to some unsolicited offer, remember this. You're not just being quiet. You are actively standing on a legal precedent that's over 160 years old, all thanks to a silent horse.